foundations are out of course. So God now says, I must work on regeneration, that I might once again reestablish generation. John 3:7, Jesus said, you must be born again. This is the beginning of what God's talking about. Because you're born again does not make you in the image of God. It gives you the possibility of being in the image of God. Being born again, if you're truly born again and you die today, you'll go to heaven, but we're not talking about heaven. We're talking about the life of God on the earth and the purpose of God. Many Christians do, I believe, with all my heart, die and go to heaven at a stage like this because they don't ever come to the point they understand their purpose. God help Gordon. We're born again and it begins to work. Look with me at 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter and the 17th verse. Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. And all things are of God. In Christ, all things are of God, who hath reconciled us to himself by Jesus Christ, and has given to us the ministry of reconciliation. What this is saying to both you and I is you are reconciled for one purpose. The ministry of reconciliation. You are regenerated to generate. You are not your own. You are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God with your body and spirit. God has brought us to the place He wants us to understand. It's about that position, and only from that position can we recapture the channels that have been usurped by an alternate flow. Romans 8. In the 9th verse. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he's none of his. And if Christ be in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the Spirit is life because of righteousness. But if the Spirit of him that raised up Jesus from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Christ from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his Spirit that dwelleth in you. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. For if you live after the flesh, you shall die. But if you through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, you shall live. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. For you have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you have received the Spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. Now there are several things that I want to mention to you in this, but the first thing that I want us to understand and look at is the fact that God said, you have received the Spirit for one purpose. Adoption. You have received the Spirit for adoption. Now what we see is in the first verse that I read to you, God said, I've indwelled you that you are once again a spiritual being. Now the purpose of God in the indwelling and we are becoming a spiritual being is that which will transpire afterwards, which will be the working to bring you into the image. In Romans 8:28 and 9, where we are, it says, and we know all things, which is the Godhead, are working for the good to them that love love God, to them who are called according to His purpose, for whom He did foreknow, He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brethren. So what we see is God comes in and indwells us by His Spirit, that the Spirit, through the quickening of the mortal body and the work of the mortification of the flesh, God says, on the other side, on the other end of this, I'm going to bring forth the sons of God who are in the image of God. So I can bring you back to that position that Adam was in the beginning. That's the work of the sanctification of God. In 2 Corinthians 3, reading the last verse in the chapter, but we all with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, were changed into the same image from glory to glory, even by the Spirit of the Lord. He's saying the same thing there he said in Romans. He said, I put the Spirit in you, and what that Spirit's doing is He's changing you from image to image, glory to glory, into the image of God. That's my purpose. And it goes on to say in the 4th chapter, 1st verse, therefore seeing we have this ministry. That's the ministry. The ministry of God is to get Adam into position so God can flow. And we've made ministry all manner of different things. That's the altered flow of a religious system. Now, we look at that and we say, okay, we're talking about those people, or those people, or those people. No, I'm talking about you and me, individually. We've made it about something less. And how can I tell you that? Because we are not seeking and fighting to get hold of what God said is true. That's why I say we must recognize the urgency in what God is saying. The ministry is that God might live through you. And it says that He will fill the garden. Well, He has to get that's where we are, brothers and sisters. It's not about anything else. It's about fill the garden. Because until the garden is full, that which flows forth from it will not be God. It will be that which we have built and called God. And in the last analysis, that's my idol. Hebrews 11:6. But without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He's a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. Now all of us gather here this morning, and we are fully aware that God operates in faith. We also, I hope, are fully aware that everything that Eden's flow touches, Eden's flow is spiritual. Purely spiritual. It's not men with good intention. It's not doing the best we can. It is purely spiritual. And everything that Eden touches is spirit. God has an economy. And His economy is spirit. And the currency of that economy is called faith. Look with me at 1 Corinthians again, to the 2nd chapter, reading those familiar verses. 1 Corinthians, the 2nd chapter. And think about what I'm going to say to you. Go to the 11th. For what man knoweth the things of man, save the spirit of man which is in him? Even So the things of God knoweth no man, but the Spirit of God. Now we have received